Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. And today is a very special day because we are unveiling our inaugural series of pro-investor interviews. And I can't think of a better way to start than with an Australian small capitalization legend, Tolga Kumova. For those of you that don't know, Tolga is somebody that started with nothing and has made himself a small fortune with consistently doing the same thing over and over again. And he's going to be nice enough to share with us today some of his investment secrets, what makes the man, how we can incorporate some of these skills in our own businesses as well. But enough with me. Tolga Kumova. Tolga, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, 180 Markets. Too humbling an introduction. I don't never consider myself the way that you've explained me, and yeah, it's humbling being described in that way. Thank you.
Not a problem at all. You know, Tolga, I'm a big believer in that our personalities are formed very early in life, and they shape all the things that go on in the future. And even though we may not remember those details of when we were 3, 4, 5 years old, those details remember us. Tolga, I know your family, and especially your mom, is critical in your life. Can you just explain to us what was life like growing up in your household?
I always talk about my mother in these podcasts just because it was a very defining moment. But my father also had an impact. My father came to Australia not being able to speak English in 1977. I was born in 1978, so just picture a migrant coming from Istanbul, from Turkey, to another country, taking these kind of risks. I think picture yourself going to, say, Russia or moving to China, not knowing the language and trying to build a life for your family. So he's also kind of an idol of mine. My father became part of the Labor Party. He was a taxi driver. He joined the Labor Party, I should say. He became friends with Bob Hawke back then, and a guy named Peter Sparker from when I was a kid. He became a Justice of Peace. So there's a guy who came with nothing. My father came with nothing and actually built himself as much as he could, both in a political sense and also a social sense. So it's not just my mother. However, Mum, she's just a different person. She's just. I'll give you an example. Let's not go to my childhood. Let's think about my parts of my successful life. When I first did the contract to buy the Ferrari, with my first Ferrari, I sent my mum a WhatsApp message, thinking, Mum, she'd be so proud of me. I'm so excited. When she sent me back, she didn't actually send me congratulations or well done, son, I'm so proud of you. She sent me a photo of a 200-foot mega yacht saying, what about this? So, yeah, you laugh. I remember looking at it going, is this for real? Like, just say thanks, well done, something. No, I didn't get that. So growing up, my mother's influence, my dad's always been a workaholic. He's always been, caring for other people. It's just been his personality. So he's always gone out of his way for everybody else. But Mum, on the other hand, she was, you've got to do better. You've got to make more. You've got to achieve more. It's always been, and being I hate to say it, a mother's boy, when your mum tells you what to do, you kind of listen. So she's almost as if she's giving me permission to go and do these things. She's saying, son, you should go and do these things. And this hasn't changed, by the way. I was speaking to my mother about a stock position I've got at the moment. It's a thing called Family Zone. Anyway, a company I'd written off, and I said to myself, to Mum last night on the phone, I was like, look, whatever I make out of this particular trade, because I don't actually written off, I'm going to go and buy a toy. I'm going to buy something fun. I get to work this morning and I was reading your questions and just, thinking about what I want to talk about. I get a message. You know what Mum sends me? There's a pumpkin, apparently there's an island in Great Barrier Reef for sale that she's like, why don't you buy this? Why don't you work towards this? So she's always instilled in me, you can go big. There's no reason to not go big or think big or dream big. And, you might not get to the point where I might not go and buy an island for $30 million, but maybe I will. Maybe it will happen. Maybe it's going to happen. But if it's not that, it'll be something else. At least if you're aiming high, if you only get halfway there, great, well done, congratulations, you can pat yourself on the back. So I think growing up, that's one of the main things. My dad just been a good person, going out of his way for other people, always also willing to take risks. Coming to another country, not being able to speak their language is a risk. And and mum on the other side saying you can always do better, always do more.
Absolutely.
So,
Raise the bar.
yeah, always. Yeah, and I've never actually been afraid of work either. So that's the other thing. When I was a kid, I was 15, I had 3 jobs. I was washing cars at a car wash at Southland Shopping Centre. I was working at the fruit market as a spruiker as a little kid on a little crate. And I was working at Safeway. So I didn't have a choice. We didn't have any money growing up. My parents weren't wealthy. So we came from a difficult area. I didn't go to school in the same area that I was living. My parents would put me on an hour bus ride to go to Cheltenham instead of going to Springvale High every day. So yeah, it wasn't the easiest upbringing, but it took me here.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were instilled with a sense of belief that you can achieve, and B, of really getting that bar up high.
Yeah. As high as you could possibly imagine. When your mother's responding with a couple $100 million mega yacht and you're buying a $500,000-600,000 car, she's going, "That's not enough, son. You've done all right, but it's not what you."
It's never enough.
Not for mum. And she's positive and optimistic, right? So and that's ever since we were kids, and that's probably the most important thing that people listening to this should do for their children. So don't let them lose their dreams. Actually inspire them to dream for more. And it's not so much for the stock market, but it's also what you're giving to your own family. Never killing that sense of I can do it. It's probably the most important thing that anyone can give their children.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And then just, I guess, touching on that, you mentioned that, you didn't start out with a lot of money, if anything at all. I'm always interested, how does somebody get to that first initial stage from 0 to 1? Not so much from 50 to 100, because that's probably well documented, but that 0 to 1, how did you even start?
Yeah, well, I've had my ups and downs. Like, it hasn't been easy. My first trade was because I used to own a car wash when I was a kid. When I was 18 years old, 19 years old, I barely just got my license and I owned a car wash. I had about probably 30 guys working for me. All the kids that I went to university with were all employees of mine. And basically all the Indian foreign students were all my mates, and they used to work for me at this car wash. But one day I'm always intrigued, and I used to speak to all of my customers because they're all really successful people, coming to their car wash and their Porsches and whatever. And there was this one guy, this Korean gentleman who I became really good friends with. He'd come every Saturday and he talked me into a trade. He's like, "How much money have you got? How much you got saved? You've been running this place for 6 months now." And I can't remember, it was probably $15,000, which is so much money to me back then. As a kid, it was like huge. Mind you, through that car wash, I was basically paying for my brothers to go to private schools, and helping out my parents at home with all the bills. But I had that money saved, and that was my little nest egg. And he convinced me after a couple of weeks to buy shares in a little company called Sanitas. I think the stock was SEN's a code, still around. And the stock was, I think, 18 cents, 19 cents back then. And he came and literally forced me to do this trade. He took me to the Commonwealth Bank, made me do the forms, set it up, do the process. Anyway, I think it was like maybe 6 months, 12 months later. Can't remember exactly. It's been a while now, but stock was $1.50. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much money. This is ridiculous. My family's it's worth as much as my parents' house. So yeah, I took that money. That was my first ever trade, hooked from that point. I tried doing a couple. This gentleman actually made me sell. He made me buy, and he came to the car wash and said, "Tolga, now you have to sell it. You've made enough money. It's been great. Perfect trade. Whatever happens from now, don't worry about it. Don't look at it." And stock went from $1.50 to I think like $2 the next 2 days. Yeah. Anyway, but I thought this is where my mistake was. This is actually a mistake. Something you can think about. I thought, wait a sec, I'm missing out. I tried to go and do something on my own. without any information, any knowledge. I
Right.
looked up a couple other codes. I thought I knew what I was doing. This is before Hot Copper and Twitter and all this. It was just me on my own. And I lost, I think it's like 30 or 40% of the money I'd made in 4 days. And I was like, Sel, I don't know what I'm doing. That's enough. This is scary.
Wow.
But then, obviously, a whole bunch of stuff happened in my life, my career. I went through so many ups and downs. But from a financial perspective, I started working at Shaw Stockbroking, or Shaw and Partners, it's called now. And Opus Prime came along. I got stuck in it. A bunch of my clients got stuck. Tore up everything I had, basically starting from scratch. And so starting from zero, for people who want to start from zero, understood markets. I had the trades right. I was doing the right positions. I just had the wrong bank holding or stockbroking firm holding my assets. Anyway, and this, I don't give this advice to people. This is what I did. And I just want to make it clear that I wasn't married, didn't have a wife and kids. I didn't have other responsibilities. So I can take these risks with the funds that I had. So I'm not telling people who are mum at home, go and put all your money into one particular stock. But I did that because I could. I didn't have any other responsibilities. I'm going to have a crack. So when you're 15, so 20, 25, 30 years old, probably could have a crack. After that, you're probably going to think a bit more sensibly because your earning capacity disappears. But I bought Doré Minerals. So I did the IPO for Doré Minerals. I put a lot of my money in seed. I put my clients in seed. I did the IPO at 20 cents with a couple of my mates. And within 6 months, stock was $1.60. Ramelius, who are in Mount Magnet, and this project was in Meekatharra, just up north. They wanted to high grade feed. This is like a 10 gram ore body. They were buying all the shares, so I sold all my stock out to them. And that was where me going from probably 30 or 40 grand investment to north of $1 million.
Right. So that really got you going.
I could have sold at 30 cents, could have sold at 40 cents, could have sold at 60 cents, could have sold at, I didn't. I held and held and held, knowing this thing grows, and the deposit did grow. It wasn't amazing in the end, but it grew to a certain point where there was a liquidity event. And there was needed to be a large liquidity event because I wasn't just taking myself out, I was taking all my clients out as well. Well, the clients that wanted to listen and sell their shares. So that's probably how I got from there to the first mill and a half. But it was, high conviction, could have sold along the way, and I didn't. And I think that kind of modeled my investments thesis and strategy now. So
I'd love to hear. That was going to be my next lead in, because everybody does it a little bit differently. Tolga, I'd love to hear how you do it and maybe what you think is your secret special sauce, if you will.
I don't say secret special sauce.
I don't know if that's the right word, but I think you get my point.
Yeah. So it's my strategy. So my strategy works for me. So what I've been used to, because it's worked the first time, so I just follow the same methodology. I find assets and people are key, which I'll get to later on, but assets that I think have scale, that are going to attract institutional interest. Something that's small, I'm looking for like 50,000 ounces, 100 or 200,000 ounces. Institutions are just not going to buy it because they can't get their relative return to the amount of capital they need to deploy. So it needs to be an asset that if they hit or do what they say they're going to do, it's going to be of scale to the perpetuals of the world or Aussie Supers of the world. These bigger funds are going to want to be there. And it doesn't have to be in their big cap. It's got to be in their small cap fund managers are going to be interested. So that's one critical point that I look at. I'm not a trader. I know a lot of traders that make a lot of money. I have people that are buying and selling all day and, going through the just capital markets of the ECM, so the equity capital market stuff, which kind of stuff that you guys do. And one important thing that I want people to take on this, when I say special sauce, people used to complain, if the company needs money. Now, companies don't get money, they don't do things. So my key point that when I'm looking for an investment, yes, management, I've got to trust them. Yes, the asset's going to be a scale, but yes, they're either going to be doing a funding exercise or be fully funded for me to be involved. Because when they've gotten funding, they're actually going to go towards a particular catalyst. They're going to drill some holes at a particular target, or they're developing a certain amount of tech and they need to do marketing There's got to be a catalyst for me to want to be involved in a company. Now, that's all good and well, but most of these businesses, these small cap companies, don't really work out. The share prices might go from 10 cents to $3, whatever, but they might not succeed. And if they don't succeed, I usually the size that I'm dealing in now, relative to what I was earlier, I don't get to sell. I can't get out of these stocks. It's just not humanly possible. And if I did try, I'd probably crunch them to a zero valuation before it even happened. So I don't typically sell. Don't misunderstand me. There are times where I'm in a position and it's gone up 20-fold on nothing. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. The risk reward's gone and I will trade them. Like, I'm not going to be naive in that sense. But most of the time I'm there all the way up and all the way down if it fails.
Right.
So one of the key things I look for at the start is, do I believe the CEO, the management team have it in them to, with the courage, and it's painful and your ego gets hurt when you fail, do they have it in them to start again? Do they have it in them to build their asset? Do they have enough in them? Are they going to, do they have the right personality and the attitude in life to stand back up and go one more time and one more time? And because usually that's what happens. So I'm backing these types of people.
Right.
But yeah, so from a liquidity perspective, I don't really get to sell that easily. And when I do get, I'm in a position to sell, I think about it rationally. So it's, yeah, that's typically my special source. I sit and hold through the catalyst. The catalyst works, and I stay for the next catalyst. And if that catalyst works, then I stay for the next one. Which is how you hold shares or stocks from, Bellevue, for example, from 3 cents to $1.10, and I'm still there.
Right.
So it's, and every catalyst they've told me they're going to hit, they have. So there's no reason to really liquidate until the company gets sold, or they annoy me somehow, do something irrational, something unexpected that I'm not comfortable with, and it's a different story. But typically I look for catalyst to catalyst.
Right. And that's, and I think that, your point about a management team that's willing to do it again, one of your holdings, Tolga, is meteoric. And I happened to have an interview with Andrew Tunks just last week, literally, on 18 minutes. And Andrew's a guy, he's already just pivoted to Palm Springs from Brazil because of COVID. And, who could have seen COVID coming? But is that what you're talking about? A person that has that ability to move a little bit?
This is not Andrew's first rodeo either, right? Rodeo either. He's tried for years and years. Things look like they're going to go well, and things have failed, and blah, blah. And I'm the type of guy that if I can see it in him that he's going to keep standing up, then I'm more than happy to back him. Another example is Steve Parsons. Like, he had what was it called, Griffin in West Africa, which was looking like it was going to be a fantastic deposit, fantastic project. Ebola happens, a whole bunch of stuff happened with the asset, fell apart, got sold for a lot less than what it could have or should have. So effectively didn't really succeed. But when we started working with him, people were telling me, don't fund this guy. He hasn't been successful in the past. And it made all sorts of excuses for me not to be involved or finance Bellevue or Dragle and Parsons back then. I don't listen to him, because if the guy's got effectively the balls to keep standing up and the courage to keep standing up, then eventually he'll get lucky. Lucky is a term that I like using often, because that's what most people call it when things go right. You just got lucky. But when you keep standing up, eventually you're going to get lucky.
Right. Absolutely. And then also, so it sounds like one of your key, I don't know if you call it sauce, is finding the right people as much as anything. And, within there, do you personally have a big network of people or a small network of people that you tend to rely on for years and years? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do. I work with, I won't name the stockbrokers because I'll probably get flooded. But I'll give you a couple examples. There's, from a geophysicist perspective, there's a gentleman by the name of Tom Eady, and I think I first put placement into a thing called Copper Strike 13 years ago, in 2007. And Tom was the MD, and I trusted his ability then, looked into his background, his history. So he's someone I genuinely trust his opinion. It doesn't always get it right. But what I do is when ideas come at me, you go to utilize everybody I possibly can to see if an opportunity is right for me. And
Right.
don't get me wrong, I'm ex-stockbroker, not a geologist, I'm not a geophysicist, I'm not a mining engineer, but I do have access to people who are. Then I use also to talk to people who I call them stock promoters, but I use Evan Cranston as an example. His family's been in this business for generations and generations. And in Kalgoorlie, there's buildings after his grandpa, named after his grandpa. So they've been in the mining space forever. So he's got a lot of experience, and it's in family culture. So ideas that these guys have, I look at seriously when they put them in front of me. And it doesn't mean they're all going to work either. And I don't say yes to all of them,
Right.
for whatever reason it is. But I do, yeah, I do use people. There's countless others. Rob Juice, and I can go through them. But I'm like I said, I'm a guy that can take all the information and see if it makes sense for an institutional investor, if it comes right.
Right.
And then it's a matter of risk versus reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great, the risk versus reward. Tolga, I'm a believer that you have to have an investment strategy that matches your risk tolerance in life, or else you will just never be comfortable in your own skin. How do you view, some people view you as a massive risk taker, some may not. How do you view yourself? I'm just curious.
I don't see myself as a master risk taker. How do I think investing in, I don't know, NAB and Qantas and BHP, I see them as risky.
Right.
But with what I do, like I'm buying investments at in businesses where I think the risk, if I get it right, is amplified. If I don't get it right, I might halve my money. But if I get it right, I'm going to make 20, 30 times the money. But I've also got, the market probably knows about 10 of my positions, but I hold 45 different stocks, in different places, different industries, different commodities, different markets, different jurisdictions. So I'm spread across a whole bunch of different markets. And I can't tell you which one of those businesses is going to go 20 times over. So it's important to people, and I don't expect them all to. I expect them all to try, as long as they try and do their catalyst. So if I'm investing in catalysts, eventually one of them's going to work, and it'll cover everything. So for investors, sometimes they talk to me and say, what's your best stock? What's your best tip? I hate talking about it because I can't tell you which one's the next one. I've got 45 of them that I believe in. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a shareholder of any of them. So yeah, it goes back to my risk taking. I'm spread. I have a portfolio of these catalyst-based stocks. I'm buying them at valuations that I believe warrant the investment. So it's I kind of mitigate my risk that way. And I say it again, not all of them will work, but the 3 or 4 that do, I'll make exponential returns.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like what you have is that great blend of optimism versus what I call realism, which is, it's not so easy to get that because it's right on an edge of a knife. But I'm just curious if you agree with it like that as well.
Yeah, well, I am optimistic. I'm an ex-stockbroker. I mean, you kind of have to be, otherwise you wouldn't. You're not in the market at all. So if you're a pessimistic individual, then this is probably not the right industry for you, because otherwise you're not going to lose. You're going to lose sleep. You're probably going to get it wrong because you're not going to think rationally. And the minute something goes down 5% or 10%, and this is the stock market in Australia, especially playing the microcap or spec space, then companies move up and down 50% before they actually do the catalyst. So if you're scared before you actually get to the catalyst, then you're gonna get stopped out, or whatever people call it, before it even happens. I don't put stops on. So I'm like, I'll wait for the catalyst to occur. If I'm successful, great. If I'm not, do I want to stay there? Is this person be able to find another project for me?
Absolutely. And Tolga, now that you have experienced, it sounds like, not only the lows and the highs, but you've had that roller coaster a number of times. It's still very important to you to give back, whether it's to your family or to people, to children in Cameroon. What makes you, I don't love the word generous. I don't think it's the right word, but care about other people so much?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say it's probably more from my father, like his attitude. Like when he came to Australia, the guy can't speak a word of English, goes and joins the Labor Party as a result of a whole bunch of community stuff and social stuff that he was doing out of his own, you know, good. He didn't have any money, but he was doing all these things. I think it's my dad's influence with regards to caring about other people and going out of my way for other people. That empathy that he had for others kind of have instilled in me. I'll tell you a story. So I didn't really have any money, right? My first win was Doro, and obviously I'm paying a significant amount of tax on it, so I'm already paying to charity, which is what I kind of call it. But I came home that night, I'll never forget it, and the day that I started liquidating most of my position, and it was money in my bank account, I'm like, I mean, I just got really lucky, and I made a list of 10 charities. Actually, it was 20 charities, just on Google.
Right.
And I went to find one that was most appropriate, most relatable to my family and my upbringing. And it was a thing called TLC for Kids. And TLC for Kids, what they do is they effectively, if you're coming from an unfortunate position, let's say hypothetically, let's say you're married and you're working as a taxi driver. You're married to my mother. My mother's or your wife, I should say, has got lupus in her joints, so she can't really work, so she's on disability pension. And she's at home, so it's single income, 3 kids, and you don't really have any sort of nest egg. My grandparent, no one's there to support them. It's just my dad working taxi driver, night shift, 7 days a week. And all of a sudden, my little brother gets leukemia, and he's got, I don't know, a month to live. My dad can't afford to not work night shift the next day because he can't afford to pay the rent, can't afford to feed the other 2 kids, me and my brother. So mum's going to the hospital by herself, going through hell, which would be hell on her own. So what this group does is effectively just comes in and financially supports, amongst a whole bunch of other things, but this is the main reason why I was involved, supports that family when they're going through their hardest times, especially, you know, when it's effectively terminal. That's when this group goes in. So when I randomly picked that group because it related to me so much, made them a donation, just blinded. And then 2 years later, I was nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year with Ernst & Young, and they sat me on a table. This is where life works in mysterious ways. Sat me on this table, and I went there by myself. I didn't have a partner. I was at the table, and the guy sitting next to me is bald gentleman, and we're chatting away, and he's asking me those questions about myself, and I was asking him questions. He goes, "Oh, look, I used to run a charity. What's the charity called?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a thing called TLC for Kids." And I'm like, oh, that rings a bell. Like, why do I know his name? Anyway, he was the manager of the charity, remembered me making a random donation, and he since then I've become an ambassador for this group. I've given him lots of money. I actually was getting married once, and it didn't work. I was engaged to this girl, and I've instead of calling it all off and getting all my refund for all the for the reception and all that stuff, I turned it into a charity event. So I just made everyone pay money to come to my ex wedding. So then now I run a polo event at my farm. So lots of people in Melbourne will know Portsea Polo. And I bought this polo farm with my best friend. And so instead of, I used my mate Sean, who owns Bondi Sands, I said, let's throw a polo event and then give all the money to TLC for Kids instead of taking for ourselves. So it's that's, how do I put it? It's just caring. I mean, I do consider myself lucky. There's no reason why I shouldn't, but giving back, it's just makes you feel better at night knowing you've helped other people that don't even know you're helping. So anyway, yeah.
Absolutely, Tolga. Well, on that note, and it's been great to spend time with you to get into your how you think, which I think that for our audience is even more important than your investment strategy, because everybody, as you said, is going to do it a little bit differently. Some people day trade on one hand. On the other hand, there's your strategy of long term. But that self-belief, doing research and having a process and surrounding yourself with the right people is absolutely critical in life. Tolga, any final notes you want to add for the audience before we call it a day here?
Good luck. And by that, I mean, keep standing.
Absolutely. Tolga, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks, Greg.